Hi everyone, this is Melissa here for Citrus Twist Kits, and for this week's Tuesday tutorial, I thought I'd record a process video showing how I make a layout from start to finish. Each month the design team is asked to make a layout using just the main kit, and ever since I opened up my main kit for December, I'd had my eye on that gray chevron paper from the print shop collection to use as a background. Now this kit has a lot of red and lime green and then grays and brown as neutrals. So the first thing that I did after trimming my background paper down to size was to go through the kit and pull out the papers that would match my photo. Now that's one crazy looking photo, I know, and it's one of those things I just happened to snap a picture of when I was in the gym one day. This weightlifting class used to be my favorite thing to go to when I had a gym membership. But it has those lime green and red colors, and so I never had papers that actually match it until this kit came along. So right away I want to go ahead and establish two things on this layout. First is the color scheme, and I'm already well on my way to the lime green and red, but I also want to make sure that I get my title in place so that I can position the journaling and all the rest of the embellishment around it. Now, part of my title is going to come from these word stickers that are from Heidi Swapp. They're silver glitter, and they're a great match for the silver glitter thickers that were in the kit. And I like to be able to move elements around my page as I'm working on a design. So I'll often do what you see me doing here, and that's to go ahead and cut out these self-adhesive embellishments, the self-adhesive words, out, but leaving the backing paper in place so they don't stick to anything. And I also go ahead and will spell out my titles across clear plastic rulers. It does the same kind of thing. I can move them around the page without having to worry about them, adhesive tearing my paper from where it's kind of partially stuck down. So I think I'm going to go ahead and put the title underneath that photo. And I want to go ahead and start pulling in some brown elements. I know I'm going to put some brown paper on this, but these cork embellishments are also a great brown accent. And this hashtag will be a great addition to the title. Now another brown embellishment is that flag. That's from the Chic Tags little flag pack that was in the main kit. I believe it's from their Recess collection. And since this was one of my favorite classes, like I said, at the gym, I thought that So Very Good tab would be a good match. And I've also, you can see off to the side, pulled out some other flags that will match the color scheme I have in mind for this layout. I may or may not end up using them, but I like to have them sitting right there so that they're, right in my frame of reference, right next to the layout, so that if I do decide to use them, I don't forget that I have them. Now I've also taken some of those silver glitter stars, those are from that same Heidi Swapp sheet, and sprinkled them around the page as well. And again, just so I don't forget, I'll go ahead and pull a stamp off of the main kit stamp sheet and put it right next to the layout so that I know that I want to use it later with that brown chalk ink. Now I said earlier I wanted to go ahead and establish that color scheme fairly quickly, so I took a piece of the glitz paper from the Finley collection and trimmed off just a little red strip to go underneath that lime green paper. And you might be noticing that this layout is filling up really quickly. I haven't done very many 8.5 by 11 layouts lately, and I had forgotten how quickly you can fill these up. They have about 35% less surface area than a 12 by 12 layout, so that's one reason they're so fast to do. I also am kind of liking the rectangular shape versus the square. It's just a different thought process, so if you ever find yourself stuck for layout ideas, it might be a good idea to try a different size. Alright, so I have brown accents, and it's time to bring in some brown paper, and I need to map my photo, so I'm going to use this brown sort of arrowhead print. That's from the Wildflower collection by Carta Bella, and I'm going to use it to map my photo. Now at this point I stopped to put my journaling in place, and I actually just ran this layout through my regular printer. Since it was 8.5 by 11, it would fit. I don't have a wide format printer, it's just a regular laser. And I used a typewriter font that's a script font, and I apologize for my head getting in the way while I'm putting this back together. I had snapped a photo of it on my iPhone before I took it apart to run it through the printer so that I remember where everything went when I came back. And I think I was paying more attention to putting things back on the page than to not getting my head in the lens. But anyway, back to that journaling. I use a typewriter font called Olympia Script. So it's a script typewriter font, and it's actually a free download, and I will put a link to that font in the show notes for this video. So if you click on that show more right underneath the video, it should have a link. Now I know I just put everything on there, but I went ahead and took the title and the photo back off because I have a watercolor technique that I've been wanting to try out. And I totally have to give Anna Maria, I think you pronounce her last name either Wolniak or Volniak. I hope I got that right. But she does these amazing watercolor techniques. And she recently posted on the October Afternoon blog, and again, I will link up to the post where she had the tutorial for how she does watercolors in the show notes, right along with that typewriter script font. But I've been really wanting to try out her watercolor techniques for myself ever since I saw it. And she starts her technique out by spreading a really thin layer of gesso over the pattern paper backgrounds. She says that it helps to keep the pattern paper from absorbing so much of the water so that the color sits more on top of the paper and doesn't get so muddy. So I'm going to try that out, and I just took a plastic card. It's one of those rewards cards that I don't use anymore. And I use it to spread just a really thin layer of gesso over the paper. Definitely thin enough that you can still see the pattern through the back of it, but enough just to give a little bit of a surface for the watercolor to adhere to. Now while that's drying, I went ahead and adhered all of the pattern paper pieces across the top. And I also decided that I wanted some more of that silver up at the top. So I took some silver washi tape from the kit and purposely wrinkled it up, maybe to make it look kind of industrial like duct tape. Wrinkled it up across the top and added it as an accent, and then stamped with that stamp that I set aside earlier underneath. Okay, so the next step in Anna Maria's tutorial was to add lots of water over the gesso. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm just using a big round paintbrush. It was a really inexpensive one from Michaels, to add lots of water, and then she dabs either sprinklers or Mr. Huey's or some kind of color mist into the water, and so it starts to spread, and then uses a paintbrush with lots more water to help spread it around. Now of course this is going to make your paper really wet, and you have two options. You can either wait for it to dry, or you can be impatient like I was and get a heat gun out and dry it with a heat tool. You get different effects from the different ways you let it dry, and you can see as I'm using the heat tool that it's actually pushing the water and the color around the page. I actually really like the way that those pushed around droplets look. But if you want a more intense, vibrant color with that more dried watercolor look, then you'll want to let this dry naturally on your workspace. So the third part of Anna Maria's tutorial was showing how to blend colors. So I've let these dry and then added a little bit more water in just a few spaces so that I can add a second color. And by letting that first color dry, it prevents them from mixing together too much and sort of blending into one color. And I know that brown and lime green might not be the most obviously beautiful color combination, but since this layout already has those colors and it's kind of a grungy look, I actually like the way that this works. So after the brown is added, I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the lime green and get my heat tool out and dry it that way. Now, if you've worked with pattern paper and water at all, you know that your paper can really buckle if you add just a little bit of mist. So my paper really buckled whenever I added all of this water for the watercolor. So I took a piece of scrap cardstock and it ran a bunch of strips of ATG adhesive over it, and then used it to stretch my layout back out. This actually did a really nice job of making it lay flat again. With my paper straightened out and everything back in place, again, I referred to that photo that I took with my iPhone, I realized that I wanted to add just a little bit more under the photo and kind of where it joins with the title. And I need a little bit of red down here, so I cut a red circle from that pink paisley die cut paper from the Hey Kid collection, and it ended up being a great little red accent just to kind of layer underneath the photo. So at this point, it is time to adhere everything down, and I started by attaching my title to the photo since that's what I wanted it grounded to. And then I'll adhere the photo down to the page and then slide that red circle up under it. And then the only thing left to add is this little silver glitter Heidi Swap word. And these are really bendable and flexible when they come off of their backing sheet. So if you want to layer them over things and or under things, they work great for that. And they're also really easy to kind of work around different pieces because they're so flexible. And then I just have these 3 little silver stars left, and I'm going to place them in sort of a triangle around the photo, though it's a little bit higher so it doesn't surround quite the whole photo, but it still brings your focus down to the photo. And here's a look at the finished layout and a few detail shots. I'd like to thank everybody for watching today, and I hope that you all have a great week.